Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at fire insurance. We're going to look at buying and using the fire insurance. So when we're buying fire insurance, there's a couple of things we need to keep in mind. One of which is where the building is located, which is known as its territory. So this is going to be broken down into territories 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't really matter what the territories signify, just that we have to know whether the building is in territory 1, 2, or 3. Similarly, we need to know what the building is made out of, and that's its class. And again, it doesn't really matter which class is what, we just need to know if it's class A, B, C, or D. We also need to know what we're insuring it for. How much we insure it for is called the face value of the policy. And then lastly, we need to know what's inside the building. So what are its contents made out of? And again, that's going to be a class A through D. So we're going to use a table, and it looks like the following. So you should have this in your book. Notice it is an annual rate, so annual fire insurance, and it's also per $100. We're going to have other tables later on that may or may not be annual. We saw before with the mortgage, it was monthly, so this one's annual, and it's also per $100. Other tables we're going to see are per 1,000, so you really have to pay attention to which table you're looking at. This is annual per 100. So remember, per is division, 100 is 100, of is multiplication, and face value will be some amount. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the number in the table, divide it by 100, and multiply it by the face value. Okay, so we have territories 1, 2, and 3. We have the structure class, so again, what the structure or the building is made out of, and then the content class, what is inside the building. Are you building clothes, something that's highly flammable? Are you working with metal, which isn't quite as flammable? Right, so what's inside the building is going to depend on how much it pays to insure it also. So for these, I want you to make sure that you have the table in front of you and that you can see the numbers that I'm getting out of this, because I can't really keep going back and forth from the table to the screen to the table to the screen. So I'm going to assume you have the table in front of you. So suppose you want to fully insure your $350,000 building that is located in Territory 2 and is Class C. Your contents inside the building are Class D and are worth $150,000. Find your annual premium. So we go to the table, we look up Territory 2 and Structure Class C, and we should be getting 0.78 from the table. And then, as I said, we divide it by 100 and we multiply it by the face value. So this is the building. The building's face value is $350,000. We do it out, we get $2,730. So one thing I want to make sure that you're doing is you are in fact dividing by 100. I have a lot of people who won't, and then their answers don't make any sense. Right? If I didn't divide by 100, I'd have 2 more zeros here, and then I'd be paying $273,000 every year to insure a building that's worth only $350,000. So you have to make sure that your answer makes sense. For the content, it's still Territory 2, right? Your content is inside the building. So if the building's in Territory 2, the content better be also. But we're in Class D. So if we go to Territory 2, Content Class D, we should be getting 1.03 from the table. And then we multiply it by the face value of the contents, which is $150,000. Okay? And we should be getting $1,545. So again, hopefully you have the table in front of you, you're finding these numbers, you're throwing it into your calculator, and you're getting the same thing that we are. So the question is find your annual premium. That is one number. Make sure your answer is the sum of these two. So make sure you add them together. And we get $4,275. So I don't want two different answers. I want one answer. That is my annual premium. $4,275. So let's try another one. You want to insure your $225,000 building in Territory 3, Class B, along with contents of Class A that are worth $300,000. Find your annual premium. So we start with the building. Territory 3, Class B, and we should be getting 0.72. So 0.72 divided by 100 times the face value of your building, and we should be getting $1,620. For the contents, still Territory 3, but now Class A, and we should be getting 0.71. Multiply it by the face value of your contents, divide by 100, and we should be getting $2,130. Again, the answer will be the total, $3,750. Let's try one more. You want to insure a building worth $500,000 in Territory 1 with contents valued at $1 million. The class of both building and contents is C. Find the annual premium. So for the building, Territory 1, contents C, we should be getting 0.66. So we take that, divide it by 100, multiply it by 500,000, the building's face value, and we should get $3,300. For the contents, Territory 1, content Class C, we should be getting 0.79, divide it by 100, multiply it by the face value of the contents, which is $1 million, and we should be getting $7,900. And then again at the end we want to add them together, $11,200. So most of this is reading off a table. So there's not a whole lot of extra credit, or partial credit rather, that I can give you on these. So it's really, really important that you know how to read the table correctly and that you double check it. Okay? And also, again, make sure you're dividing by 100. Make sure your answers make sense. What happens, though, if you don't want a year's worth of insurance? So sometimes you have a company that is seasonal, like those Halloween stores that always pop up in, August or September, and they're gone by the middle of November. They don't need a full year's worth of insurance. Or you might end up going bankrupt and you need to close your store. So what happens then? We have what's called a short-term rate. And we use this table when the business owner cancels the insurance. Okay. So we have the months of coverage and then the percent of annual premium charge. So it's just a basic percent question. If I cancel after 2 months, I'm going to pay 30% of my year's worth of insurance, of my annual premium. If I cancel after 10 months, I'm going to pay 90%. But again, this table is only used if the business owner cancels the insurance. If the insurance company cancels, then we just use the percentage of the months that we had the insurance for. So I'm going to go over a couple examples. But again, this table is only if the business owner cancels. So, suppose you have a year's premium of $3,000. You cancel the policy after 5 months. What do you owe and what is your refund? So I go to my table, the business owner is canceling, which is you. So I go to the 5 months, and that is 60%. So I find 60% of my year's premium, which is $3,000, and that's $1,800. So of that $3,000 that I, in theory, already paid, I only owe $1,800. My refund is the difference. So I get a refund of $1,200. On the other hand, if the insurance company canceled on me, either the insurance company might be going out of business, or I filed too many claims, something funky happened, they're canceling on me. I don't go to that table, I don't pay 60%. What I do is I only pay 5/12 of it because I only had it for 5 months of the year, which is 12 months. Okay, so again, if the insurance company cancels, we're looking at the percentage or the proportion of the months that we had it for. So I'm just looking at 5/12 of 3,000, which is 1,250. The refund, again, is the difference. So 1,750. If the insurance company cancels on you, you end up paying less than if you cancel on them. So let's try another one. Suppose you have a year's premium of $5,750. The insurance company cancels on you after 9 months. What do you owe and what is your refund? So again, the insurance company is the one doing the canceling. So we look at what proportion of the year did we have the insurance for. And that's 9 months out of 12 months. So I'm only going to pay 9/12 of $5,750. And that is $4,312.50. And again, the refund is the difference. So $1,437.50. What if you, as the business owner, canceled after 9 months? So the business owner cancels, we go back to that table. 9 months is 85%. So I'm going to pay 85% of the year's premium, which turns out to be $4,887.50. And again, the refund is the difference, $862.50. Okay, so deciding whether or not you're going to use the short-term rate depends on who did the canceling. The business owner cancels, you use the table. The insurance company cancels, you use the percentage of months. What happens if you have a fire in your building and you need to use the insurance? How much do you get paid? So if you're fully insured, then the insurance company will pay any damages up to the face value of your policy. Not very interesting mathematically, so we're going to assume that you're not fully insured. A lot of business owners don't fully insure their building because a total loss from a fire is really rare. So instead, they only insure a portion of the building's worth. But if that happens, the insurance companies still need to make sure that they make money. So they have what's called a co-insurance clause. So I know that looks like kind of coin insurance, but it's co-insurance because you are insuring it as the business owner and the insurance company is insuring it. So it's a co-insurance. So a co-insurance clause states the following. If you, the business owner, insure at least some given percentage of the building's worth, then we, the insurance company, will fully cover your losses up to the face value of the policy. If you do not insure at least the given percentage, then we, the insurance company, will only cover a portion of any loss up to the face value of the policy. So we're going to see what that means. So for our first example, you own a building worth $500,000, but only insure it for $450,000. The insurance company has a co-insurance clause of 85%. How much will the insurance company pay for a loss of A, $300,000, B, $420,000, C, $485,000? So this is not a multiple choice question. I have some people in the homework who think that it's a multiple choice. It is, I need an answer for A, I need an answer for B, I need an answer for C. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what 85% of the building's worth is. I have some people who will take the 85% of the face value of the policy, but that's not what I want. I want 85% of the building's worth. And that is $425,000. Next, we have to ask ourselves, are we meeting this, what's called co-insurance requirement? So are we insuring for at least that amount? Yes, because we're insuring for $450,000, which is at least $425,000. So this means that it is in the first part of that co-insurance clause. I am insuring for at least that amount, so the insurance company will fully cover any loss up to the face value of the policy. So when it comes to answering A, B, and C, all I have to do is figure out which number is smaller, the loss or the face value of the policy. So for A, $300,000 versus 450,000. Which one is smaller? 300,000. For B, 420, 450. Which one's smaller? 420. For C, 485, 450. Which one's smaller? 450. Okay, so if you are insuring for at least the coinsurance requirement, then any loss gets covered up to the face value of the policy. So as long as the amount is less than or equal to the face value, what you're insuring it for, it'll be covered. If the loss is more, like it is for C, you'll only get covered up to the face value. Okay, the insurance company will never, ever, ever pay you more than the face value of the policy. But let's try another one. You own a building worth $350,000, but only insure it for $300,000. The insurance company has a co-insurance clause of 90%. How much will the insurance company pay for a loss of A, $200,000, B, $305,000, or C, $345,000? So again, we're going to ask the same starting questions. What is 90% of the building's worth? $315,000. Are you insuring for at least that amount? No. I'm only insuring for $300,000, which is not at least $315,000. If the answer is no, you then have to go further and say what portion of the requirement are you insuring? Now, I have some people who will take the portion of the building's worth that they're insuring, but that's not the question being asked. What portion of the requirement? So I am insuring $300,000, that's the numerator. I'm supposed to insure for at least $315,000, that's the denominator, that's the requirement. Simplify, 20 over 21. Do not round. Okay, I know it's very tempting. People put it in their calculator, they get a decimal. They want to just put the first 2 decimal places. You cannot round, you need the whole fraction. It is very, very important that you use the entire fraction. So what this number is saying is that the insurance company will cover 20 out of 21 of any loss up to the face value of the policy. So instead of which one's smaller, the face value or the loss, it becomes which one's smaller, the face value or 20/21 of any loss. So if I want to find how much I will get out of a loss of, say, my $200,000, I take 20 out of 21, multiply it by 200,000, so the loss, and I get out $190,476.19. Now remember, it's dollars, so round to the nearest cent. Okay, so I take that 20 out of 21, multiply it by the loss, and then ask myself which one's smaller, that amount or the face value. That amount. There should be a dollar sign there, but whatever. For B, it was $305,000. So I'm going to take that, multiply by my 20 out of 21. If I do that, I should get $290,476.19. Okay. And then again, I ask myself, is that number bigger or smaller than the face value? So this one's the smaller amount. So that's how much I'm going to get paid out for B. And then for C, it was $345,000. So I multiply that by 20 out of 21. And I get $328,571.43. That number, however, is bigger than my face value. So for C, I'm only going to get my face value, which was $300,000. Okay. So if you do not meet the requirement, you have to find out what percentage or what fraction of the requirement you are meeting, and then take that fraction of the loss and say which one's bigger, that or the face value, or rather which one's smaller. So let's try another one. You own a building worth $1 million and insure it for $800,000. The insurance company has a co-insurance clause of 95%. How much will they pay for a loss of $500,000? What is 95% of $1 million? $950,000. Are you insuring for at least that amount? No, I'm only insuring for $800,000. That's clearly not at least $950,000. What portion of the requirement are you insuring? I am insuring $800,000. I'm supposed to be insuring at least $950,000. And if I simplify that, that's 16 over 19. Again, do not round that number. You need the whole fraction. And again, what this is saying is that the insurance company will pay 16/19 of any loss up to the face value of the policy. So they will pay 16/19 of $500,000, which is clearly going to be less than the face value. So what is 16/19 of $500,000? $421,052.63. So again, this idea of co-insurance is that the company, the insurance company, will pay this much. The business has to pay the rest. So they're both kind of insuring the building. Okay. So again, it's really important that you remember where this fraction is coming from, what you're insuring over what you're supposed to be insuring according to the co-insurance clause, not what the building is worth. Okay? Sometimes business owners have multiple policies or multiple companies. The amount that each company pays towards a loss is the ratio of the amount of coverage each company has on the building. So for our first example, suppose you have a $100,000 policy with company A, a $150,000 policy with company B, and a $150,000 policy with company C. You meet all co-insurance clause requirements. How much will each company pay towards a loss of $200,000? So to make this as easy as possible, I'm going to make a table. So my first column are my companies, A, B, and C, and then the total. And then the policy, each person's policy amount, and the total. So I add them all together, I should get $400,000. To find the ratio, it's just the ratio of company A to total, ratio of company B to total, C to total, and so forth. So we've done this a few times before. So these numbers are all pretty nice, so we can find the ratios fairly easily. Company A's ratio is 100,000 over 400,000, which is 1 over 4. B's is 15 over 40 if I get rid of the zeros and then cancel a 5, I'm left with 3 over 8. B and C should be the same. If I add them up, make sure you always get 1. Again, just like before, do not round. Make sure you're using the whole fraction. Okay? And then we're going to take the ratio and multiply it by the loss. So a quarter of 200,000, that's 50,000, then 3/8 of 200,000, and that's going to be the same for B and C. You get 50,000, 75,000, 75,000. Okay, so again, you're just multiplying the ratio by the loss. Add them up. Make sure your total loss is what the loss was. Again, the companies won't pay more than the loss, so make sure that they equal the same thing. It's slightly more complicated if you don't meet the co-insurance requirement. So suppose you own a building worth $400,000. You have a $200,000 policy with company A and a $100,000 policy with company B. They have a co-insurance clause of 90%. How much will each company pay towards a loss of $180,000? So we need what's 90% of 400,000, 360,000. Do you meet the requirement? So we have 200,000 and 100,000. Is that at least 360? No. what portion of it do you meet? So again, our total policy, 300, divided by what we should be paying as of the coinsurance clause requirement. Simplify it, we get 5/6. Again, do not round. It is a repeating decimal, so make sure you keep everything. So the company is only going to pay 5/6 of the loss, which is $150,000. So once we find that amount, this is going to be what our total should end up being, and this 150 is what we're going to multiply the ratios by. So we set up our table, and Company A has a policy of 200,000, Company B has a policy of 100,000. We already talked about the total being 300,000. So again, the ratio, take A divided by total, B divided by total. Again, those are fairly straightforward fractions, 2/3, 1/3. Add them together, I do get 1. And then I'm going to take the ratio and multiply again by that 150,000, that 5/6 of the loss. And I should be getting 100,000 and 50,000, which do add up to the 150,000. So don't forget to do that coinsurance part first. Okay, so try out some problems and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.